up until today, one of my most anticipated upcoming MMOs that was scheduled to release this year has been Throne and Liberty. Previews of the game showed quite a bit of promise with some solid looking visuals, a large scale open world, big player counts, and some really interesting sounding features and systems for both PvE and PvP. This game, which has been in development for like over a decade now, seemed like it was coming together to turn out to be something pretty decent. Well, the closed beta testing for Throne and Liberty began this week over in South Korea, and there was no NDA. So what this means is we've had a bunch of streams and YouTube videos out there letting us actually see gameplay in action and hear some players' early impressions. And it's not looking good. In fact, it's looking very, very bad. So bad, in fact, I think that there's a decent chance if this game launches as it is right now, it's just gonna be a total absolute flop, which is a real bummer because like I was genuinely excited for this game. I was really looking forward to this game, and I still intend on giving it a look because I want to form my own opinions and impressions, and I want to have my own experience with it. But it has quickly gone from one of the best looking new MMOs releasing in 2023 to quite possibly probably one of the worst. Like they were just like that. Just like that. So let's go over some of the immediately glaring issues that have popped up over these past few days. First and foremost, and hands down, one of the most important things to get right in any game, in my opinion, is the combat. What are the mechanics? How does it work? And how does it feel to play your game? Well, the combat in Throne and Liberty simply looks absolutely horrible. I'd go as far as to say it's probably one of the worst iterations of tab targeting that I've ever seen for what is supposed to be a AAA PC MMO. And this is not a tab target versus action combat discussion. It's not a debate about the pros and cons to both of those systems, because I played and enjoyed a ton of tab targeting in many different MMOs. I think that system is totally adequate. I think it's got its own merits to it, and there's parts of tab targeting that I even like more than action combat, and vice versa. This isn't about that. This is just a really bad version of tab targeting.
My problem is like you can't move and hit, so if any kind of movement, but it's very, very, very static. Like if I hit him once and then I run around, I literally won't do any damage. Now if I change to a ranged weapon, then you have the same problem in that it's very, very static. If I try and move, I'm not going to do any damage at all, no matter how long the ability takes or anything like that. It just freezes you in place. People might like that, but I tell you right now, this ain't for me.
So as you can see, how they've implemented tab target combat in Throne and Liberty, it just hard roots you in place. And there isn't even auto attacking. Literally, there's practically nothing that you can do while moving. If you are moving, you are not dealing damage. To deal damage, you have to stand completely still. Evidently, and maybe unsurprisingly, this has pretty massive effects on melee characters in PvP.
How's melee in PvP? It's dog shit. Like if the target is moving, you can't attack them. But the PvP endgame is gonna be, large scale, so that'll be different. But for like 1v1s and stuff, one can just run away.
Because of the fact that you cannot move at all while attacking, and this is a tab target game and not an action combat game, the result is a combat system that feels very, very static. And by most accounts, pretty much from everyone that I've heard talk about the combat in the game, it just doesn't feel good. It seems pretty darn boring. And talking about PvP, it's pretty rough. Like I've seen clips of players, just both of them standing still, continuously attacking each other, barely doing any damage. Because yeah, remember, they're never gonna be moving and dealing damage. They're both just standing there, like staring at each other, swinging their weapons and casting spells, and the health bars are barely moving. Like what is this? This isn't gameplay. And then there's also this clip of how PvPing as melee, when people just decide to move, looks absolutely horrible. I mean, this seems incredibly frustrating. Like they just keep running away, and while they're running away, you can't do anything because you can't do damage while you're moving. I know some of you might be thinking, Force, there are tons of games that have abilities with cast times or attacks that root you in place, and that is absolutely true. Like, this is not uncommon in games. The big difference here appears to be that there are virtually zero attacks that you can do while moving, so 95% of the time, you have to stand completely still to do any damage. Most games that do have attacks that root you in place will also have some sort of movement attached to those attacks, or they will let you weave movement abilities to keep up with things in between the attacks that you're doing. Well, Throne and Liberty Liberty appears to have none of this. But don't just take my word for it, my anecdotal evidence from watching this, and then the opinions that I'm pulling into this video from people who have been playing over these past few days. Check this out. There was a Reddit thread a few months back that was detailing specifically how combat in Throne and Liberty works and what exactly about it feels so bad. Now, at the time that this was posted, people were writing it off as untrue because we hadn't actually seen any real live gameplay at that point in time. Well, now that we've actually seen the game in action, the way they describe combat appears to be spot on. Like they described it exactly how we're seeing it function right now, which then also leads me to believe that the implications that they discuss with how this combat plays out over time are true, and they don't sound good. Here, let's take a look. So, to quote them, when you use a skill, you are not able to move till the animation is over. There are few, very few skills which the animation also has movement. You can see some of these in a few of the trailer videos, examples being like the two-handed sword with a whirlwind, or dual wielding that allows you to teleport to your target, or the bow that has a backdrop. So basically they're saying there are some skills that have movement in this game, but most of them will hard root you in place for the entire duration. They then go on to say, for people that associate the you can't move while using a skill to a system like the one from, say, Black Desert, it is really different. In BDO, 80% of the skills also allow you to move since they have movement attached to them and are weaved with mobility skills and animation cancel, which in turn makes your character really mobile, making it seem pretty much that you move while attacking. And that is very true from what I remember with my time playing Black Desert Online. While many of the characters' attacks that I played did root them in place, most of them did have some built-in movement, either sidestepping or sliding or dashing in pretty much any direction for a lot of the various attacks. Plus, on top of that, there's just so much additional movement in the game that you weave in between those attacks, combining that with animation canceling, that resulted in combat that, while it did have rooted attacks, it felt very mobile. It was actually very mobile and rooted at the same time. Throne and Liberty has pretty much none of that, and the result is combat that just feels super static, and you've seen it for yourself in the clips that we've seen. You're just standing still like half the time. And there aren't even auto attacks in the game that will happen. You can't like chase a character and do auto attacks. There's none of that. You'll be standing behind them doing nothing as you continue to move behind them. They continue to make points in comparing this tab target system to how it works in other MMOs. They say, normally in tab target games, you are able to move while attacking with a lot of your skills and abilities, like for example in WoW and SOTOR and ArcAge, etc. But the current TL system makes it so that combat of this game is really static, and even the Korean forums are already saying that playing melee classes is not even worth it because players and mobs can literally just walk away from 99% of your damage by moving 0.5 meters. Range classes are fine since they work like they do for normal casters in many other MMORPGs as you cast the skill and then you move. So with all of this in mind, I'll just reiterate what I said at the top. This does appear to be like one of the worst iterations of tab target combat that I've ever seen. It seems incredibly static. It seems incredibly lifeless. It seems really, really boring. And if you don't have a combat system that is fun to engage with, people aren't going to stick around playing for pretty much anything else. Like whatever is in the rest of the game isn't going to matter. Throne and Liberty does have some cool things, but players aren't going to be around to see the big seamless open world. They're not going to be around to see the cool dungeon system or the interesting large-scale boss fights and large-scale and open field PvP. If the game is not fun to play, most people won't be around to engage with any of that. To help alleviate the fact that combat does appear to be very, very boring, they have automated literally all of it. Yes, auto just about every aspect of playing the game. You have auto attack and skill use, where basically you can toggle your abilities so that they will instantly trigger the second that they're off cooldown. If that wasn't enough though, there's just full on auto combat. If you click the auto farm button, you can just AFK and the game will grind mobs in the area for you, continuously attacking while you're going off making a sandwich or watching a movie or whatever else you're doing. There's also auto pathing, of course, where you can click parts of the map, click on a quest, and it will automatically run there for you. In fact, they have a full-on autoplay offline mode. What does that mean? Well, it means the game plays itself while you are logged out and the computer is shut down. It appears to be a time limit of 8 hours a day, and I will say that doesn't seem like a coincidence, right? Suspiciously, 8 hours a day is around the same amount of time that most people tend to sleep. It's almost as if they're trying to incentivize people to have their PC on running, either playing themselves or auto playing for 16 hours a day, and then while you're resting for the 8 hours at night, shut it down, don't worry, We've got auto offline play where the game will play itself for you. And I think the worst part about that is it's going to create these situations where people are going to say they end up staying up later, right? They shut off their PC, they click autoplay, and they don't fall asleep for a couple of hours. You know people are then going to wake up after 6 hours when their 8 hours of auto offline play is running up to make sure that they log back in and click autoplay while their PC is also running. Like, it's just so much of it is an absolute nightmare. Although I will say, I don't even care so much about a game that has auto combat or auto pathing or auto skill use on cooldowns. Like, games can have that if you also still have a good combat system, and if this trade-off is, yes, you can automate things, but it won't be as efficient if you're playing by yourself. Fine, whatever. If you want that in the game for while people are AFK and they still want to accumulate some gold. I don't love how that just plays into FOMO, where you got to feel like you're constantly keeping your PC running, although I guess this game alleviates that with offline play. But my point is, although I do not prefer that games have these automated systems for combat, for playing itself, for farming, I don't love those things. I don't kind of love the pressures that they create within the game. I feel like they ultimately take away from the gameplay experience. But if games have them, fine. It's that in conjunction with the fact that just normally playing the game, evidently, from all we've heard and seen, again, I haven't played myself, I promise, and there will be follow-up videos. All accounts and all reporting from this current test say that playing the game feels bad, but don't worry, you can just automate it all to play itself anyways. And none of this is even touching on, and I will touch on this in the future because I will continue to cover and dive in myself, like I said. None of this talks about the cash shop, which already seems likely to be very pay to win and pay to skip. You know, NCSoft has notoriously had a bad monetization in every single one of their MMOs. The only exception that you can point to is Guild Wars 2, but keep in mind, they didn't make Guild Wars 2, right? They didn't create Guild Wars 2. Every MMO that NCSoft has developed themselves ranks amongst the worst of the worst when it comes to how these games handle monetization. So it would be naive of us to assume there won't be tipping in that direction, if not at launch at some point after. And then I've got gripes like, I just think the UI looks bad. And I don't even mean stylistically. I just mean it's got that same look that feels like overly crowded and cluttered and busy and trying to attract you to the shop and attract you to limited time events. And these sort of UIs, the way they're designed to get you to engage with these other layers of systems and to get you to engage with the monetization, I really do hate it. I much prefer simple UIs. Let me focus on playing the game, not focus on your layers of monetization. If you make a good game, I'll pay you more for it. I'll buy stuff. If you make a free-to-play game and I love it and I'm playing 50 hours, 100 hours or more, I will spend money on your game. But all these little bells and whistles that they attach to try to lure people into that stuff, just make a good game. That's what I want. Just make a good game. You know, when you put all this together, everything that we've talked about so far, it makes it pretty clear that Throne and Liberty, as it sits right now, this is a game that has changed many, many, many times over in the 10 plus years it's been in development. This used to be an isometric game. Check out some of my prior coverage. This used to be an isometric game, so it's very different from what it was when it started development all those years ago. Its current iteration clearly is designed for mobile. There's no question about that. With the way combat works and the fact that attacks root you in place, with the fact that there is auto everything, auto use of your abilities off cooldown, auto play, which they call astral hunting, auto move, and all of the timers and the limited use items and the microtransaction system and many other things that I haven't even discussed yet. All of this makes it seem pretty clear this is a game that they made to be played on phones. They're also bringing it to PC. At least other games try to hide the fact that they are mobile centric or that they spent a lot of time with mobile as a focus in development. When they have their PC ports, they don't even try to hide it. From what I've seen, it just looks like a mobile game that you can play on PC. And I think, well, I know the reason I made this video and what makes all of this all the more frustrating is this is a game that has like a ton of really cool things going for it. There's a lot of potential here. I mean, for one, the visuals look fantastic. I can't knock them here. Seeing this game on high settings, the lighting, the environments, all of the effects, some of the transitions that takes place, like when you're loading into areas, they've got this really cool transitional effect. Like visually, this game is very appealing. It also appears to be pretty well optimized, and most of the gameplay that I've seen on streams and YouTube videos seems to run pretty well, even with like 20, 30, 40 plus other players on screen. But then there are the systems, and this is the whole reason I got excited for Throne and Liberty in the first place. There's some real amazing sounding systems. They've got this huge seamless open world, which does appear to bear out. As bad as the gameplay looks, the world looks impressive. It looks big. It looks like there's a lot going on, a lot of NPCs, a lot of other players. They've got their open world public dungeons. So think dungeons, but people can just wander in it. It's not like Instance where you just go in with a group of 4 or 5. Big multi-layered dungeons with a ton of verticality that people can go in and out seamlessly. You'll see tons of people in there. They've got their weather and time of day day and the fact that that impacts the world, like changing the terrain, but also buffing and weakening monsters. There's the PvP, both large scale and open world with siege battles. There's the fact that they've got a classless system where your character's abilities and their capabilities are based off the gear and the skills that you select. Like, there's so much potentially cool, but like I said, none of that matters if the game isn't fun to play, and none of it's going to matter to much of the PC crowd if this does just, which appears to be, look to be a mobile game that they're just like shoving on a PC as well. Now, currently the game is scheduled to release later this year, sometime in October to be exact, and let me just say they cannot move forward and release this game as it sits. In my opinion, Throne and Liberty needs to be delayed again. If the game launches with the combat that we're seeing here, it's going to get torn to shreds. It's just far below what even relatively low standards we might have for MMO combat. This doesn't cut it. It's not good enough by all accounts from what I've seen. It looks really bad. If the game is going to have any chance here in the West with that PC MMO crowd, they absolutely need to, and I know this is no small feat, they need to update their combat system. They need to change how they approach tab targeting. Keep the auto stuff if you want, but make playing the game actually feel good. You know, if you want to launch Throne and Liberty to go, Throne and Liberty mobile version, whatever, have a blast. Go ahead. It seems probably like it's a solid mobile MMO, but it does not seem like a good PC MMO whatsoever. I'm pretty comfortable in saying that, like, if what we are seeing right now were to launch on Steam today, it would be sitting at mostly like overwhelmingly negative reviews. That would be my assumption. The good news is there is still a lot of cool things here. The setting, the gameplay space, the visuals, those all look great, but they really need to fix the combat, maybe work on the UI to not make it so intrusive and ugly, and rein in what I'm assuming are going to be pretty bad microtransactions. Is that all going to happen before October? Odds are pretty slim, and that just it's just disappointing because so much about what they have in this game, the world, those systems, would make for a cool game if the game were also fun to play, but it looks like we might be out of luck with Throne and Liberty. But I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. As always, I'm hoping for the best. I want good games. I like playing games. I want the games that I play to be good and be fun. Will Throne and Liberty get there? Let's see. My confidence went from probably maybe somewhere pre this gameplay stuff coming out. I was like maybe 60 to 70% confident. Like there's a chance Throne and Liberty could be something. That's down to like 30, 20%. That's just how I'm feeling. But I will update you in the future. I will play the game once the test comes to the West, once Amazon runs their betas of the Western version. Maybe the combat is entirely different. Is it possible? I suppose, but I'm not going to hold my breath. That's all. It's really just a bummer. That's what it comes down to. I'm so bummed. This is the reality that we have right now. Maybe I shouldn't have expected anything else from NCSoft, but here we are. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And I will keep you updated on Throne and Liberty, I promise, if it gets better or worse. See ya.